Egypt, a land of mysteries, treasures and myth, has lured explorers for centuries. Here is, at a glance, all you need to know before you join this elite group of adventurers. This exploration guide combs through all Egypt's major cities, historic sites and natural wonders. Egypt sits on two continents, Africa and Asia. In Africa, we will travel from Aswan to Luxor, Cairo and Alexandria, while on the Asian side, on the Sinai Peninsula, we will brush upon Port Said, Suez, Hurghada and Sharm Sheikh. We will take a closer look at the magnificent Sahara Desert and at the majestic River Nile, before we explore all Egypt's historic sites, starting with the pyramids and the Sphinx, and followed by the greatest temples of Luxor, Karnak, Edfu, Ombo, Philae and Abu Simbel. We will go deep into Egypt's legendary Theban necropolis and highlight two major pharaohs, the Queen Hatshepsut and King Tutankhamun. Let us start in the busy and intense city of Cairo, Egypt's capital. Cities change, buildings rise and fall, and neighborhoods dust themselves off. Cairo is no different. There is one constant though, its skyline of domes and minarets, which have been standing there for ages. These never change, unwillingly becoming like pins on a road map, marking centers and suburbs, and you start finding your way around the city by following them. I will recognize in a million the minaret of the Al-Hussein Mosque near the El-Khalili Bazaar. The holiest, they say, mosque and mausoleum, stand there in part since 1154. Rebuilt in Gothic revival in 1874, its pointed Ottoman-style minaret is beautifully lit by night. The nearby Al-Azhar Mosque from 972 became a school of higher learning. A revered independent university today, it is the second oldest in the world. You can find old Cairo by following the double minaret. From the Citadel, you can gaze in awe at the iconic Mosque Madrasa of Sultan Hassan, the most handsome, eclectic, grand and robust of all Cairo's houses of worship, built in the 1300s while the plague ravaged Egypt. The mosque also acted as a bastion at times, and sultans who ordered it to be demolished were utterly unsuccessful. The Ibn Tulun Mosque from 879 is the second oldest in Egypt and the largest by surface. It has a unique twisted minaret and a giant square courtyard. It affords panoramic views over Cairo and was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site along with historic Cairo and the aforementioned mosques of Al-Azhar and Sultan Hassan. Its most prominent feature is the Mosque of Muhammad Ali, but the Citadel is a whole fortification with walls and towers, other places of worship, a palace, and much more. These were built by different rulers of Egypt throughout the centuries, as the Ayyubid dynasty, the Mamluk Sultanate, or the Ottoman Empire. Two main giant towers have been very recently opened to visitors, and today the compound also includes the Egyptian Military Museum, the Al-Gawara or Bijou Palace Museum, the Carriage Museum, and the Police Museum. As part of Old Cairo, the Citadel is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The Citadel is the best place from where to see Cairo in all its splendor. The Mosque Madrasa of Sultan Hassan stands right across from the moat. It is one of the most incredible panoramic city views you'll ever behold. They just pop up eventually, towering over the peripheral neighborhoods of the city. As you get closer, though, they shrink to become three little heaps of building blocks lost in the Sahara Desert on the Giza Plateau. Distances are so deceiving. The biggest one is almost 150 meters tall and 230 meters each side at the base. This is the equivalent of a building with 50 floors, while the perimeter equals to running around an Olympic stadium once. Secrets of the pyramids have been debated in so many books and documentaries, and there is still more to come. With Egypt allowing archaeologists and researchers from other fields more readily access to the pyramids compared to the past, you can expect news every day. Assigning dates to bare stones is hard, but carbon dating tests of the mortar and of some wood found inside have been performed with various results. Inscriptions are scarce, the mysteries linger. Officially, the three pyramids were built by the pharaohs Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure of the 4th dynasty. As the oldest and only surviving monuments of the 7 world wonders of the antiquity and a UNESCO World Heritage Site, this visit should be the #1 on your bucket list. It's called today, in Egyptian Arabic, the Terrifying One, or the Father of the Dead. Heaven knows when and how the spectacular statue was built. Most attributions are being made on circumstantial evidence, since it lacks original inscriptions of any kind. As far back as 1400 BC, there are records of the Sphinx being already buried in the desert, and pharaohs endeavoring to dig it out. Later, the Roman emperors excavated it once again, and only in the late 1800s that it was fully freed from the sand. We know today that it had a red face, a hole on the top of the head, a rum passage, and other holes people poked in it over time. Thousands of years seemed like blinks of an eye in the long history of Egypt, and along the way, the Sphinx has been romanticized and pseudo-historic inaccuracies were invented for one purpose or another. The Sphinx might be the most stunning and recognizable statue on Earth, but for me, it is the best 3D suspense movie ever created. As it stands still in the ever-moving sands of the Sahara Desert, it does run wild in people's imagination, and it will continue to do so until some sort of undisputable evidence tells us that it landed in front of the pyramids from another planet. Just kidding. El-Khalili attacks all your senses. I am glad I got to see it years ago when some of the oldest shops and coffee houses, like El Fishawi, still looked like movie sets. Its hustle and bustle is fascinating, and I found no equal until now. Not sure where to start. It is vast, old, colorful, aromatic, polyglot, loud, beautiful, exquisite, intricate. It is a city, actually. It has everything that a medieval town would have. It started, after all, in the mid-1300s. It has buildings of several stories, has courtyards, streets and alleys, food peddlers, tea shops, restaurants. It has gates and porticos. It has fine boutiques, jewelry stores, perfume stores, carpet stores. But then it has artists and artisans and their workshops. These are mostly located above the stores, on the second floor of these crowded and cluttered buildings, where a totally new world unfolds. There you enter their private lives, where they eat, sleep and create, families, friendships and art. In Egypt you will never be turned away. A cup of tea here, a cup of tea there, and finally El-Khalili sinks in. You finally connect the dots between the sweat of making things and the eagerness to sell them. Shopping in El-Khalili is a game of wits. You win if you can match your vendor's joviality, sense of humor, and ability to speak more than 3 or 4 languages. Never have I found more multilingual people gathered together in one place. No wonder that so much knowledge and wisdom comes from that country. Although it is the largest hot desert on planet Earth, it lives a cyclic existence between being a desert and a savanna every 20,000 years. In our lifetimes, though, it'll always be a desert with virtually no rain, one of the top driest areas in the world, only second to the Atacama. The sun shines 90% of Sahara's daylight hours each year, and its hottest spots average temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius, with the sand burning up your feet at 80 degrees. Although the nights are cold and there are sporadic oasis areas with water, humans don't get to rule the Sahara. They can only navigate it as guests. The only living creature who can survive the desert is the dromedary camel. The camel can lose up to a third of its water content before it calls it quits. Nevertheless, since it has only existed as a domestic animal for the last 2,000 years, it is correct to assert that man and camel are the only symbiotic couple able to rule the Sahara. There are fun toys that man also uses to cross vast expanses of the sandy land, but since there are no gas stations on the way, the vehicle's encroachment in the millennium-arid ecosystem of Sahara will not advance much. We humans are capable of occupying many places that don't naturally belong to us. Sahara might be, along with the polar regions, the last ones to fall. If you do get though to drive one of these toys, it will be a life-altering experience, to which you have to add an evening under the most spectacular Milky Way and star-studded night sky you'll ever see. I should talk here about Nile cruises, but first allow me to say what the Nile means to Egypt. The Nile is arguably not the longest, not the widest, and not the most abundant river on the planet, but it is one of the most needed. The Nile is a lifeline of Egypt, as well as of the other 11 countries it flows through: the Democratic Republic of Congo, Tanzania, Burundi, Rwanda, Uganda, Kenya, Ethiopia, Eritrea, South Sudan, and Sudan, with 3 of their capitals located on its shores: Juba, Khartoum, and Cairo. On its way to the Mediterranean Sea, the Nile traverses the Sahara Desert, and on its shores we can find in Egypt the cities of Aswan, Luxor, Cairo, and Alexandria. Its name, Nil, means indigo, the dark blue dye, and it is the way ancient Egyptians must have perceived it, in contrast with the green fields it creates while stubbornly advancing through the desert. Fully navigable, what you will mostly see on the Nile are feluccas, sailing boats with 1 or 2 Latin triangular sails. Their silhouettes are so elegant that their ethereal quality makes you, at times, forget the privations of the people living along this water lifeline. Historically, the Nile has 3 seasons: Akhet, Peret, and Shemu, or flood, growth, and harvest. Its waters overflow once a year, producing fertile silt for wheat, flax, and papyrus fields, as well as for raising water buffaloes and camels, under the patronage of Hapi, the god of floods. The Nile cruises allow you to witness Egypt's life and realities, the splendid river's unmatched beauty, the heat of the desert, and visit a long line of vestiges of Egypt's past, all from a place of comfort. Alexandria, the sunken city, is today the largest one on the Mediterranean and second largest in Egypt after Cairo, a significant port and industrial area, aside from being a major travel destination. In memory of its treasures lost to the sea, a new state-of-the-art library of Alexandria has been built, with UNESCO support, with a capacity of 8 million books. On the opposite side of the large Nile Delta, we find the Suez Canal, the city of Port Said, the city of Suez, and then the Red Sea resorts farther south. The city of Hurghada rests on the shores of the Red Sea, on the continental side of the Gulf of Suez, an incredibly gorgeous natural spot with crystalline and calm waters and white sand beaches, that has grown from a fishing village into a sprawling resort town. Would love to see it now. Last time I was there, it was still growing up. At the tip of the Sinai Peninsula, geographically in Asia, lies Sharm on the shores of the Gulf of Aqaba, also a resort town. The hotels, the beaches, the weather, and the diving reefs are just some of its attractions, plus easy access to Mount Sinai and the St. Catherine Monastery, built in 565 AD, the world's oldest still inhabited Christian monastery and the UNESCO World Heritage Site. Although Egypt is almost entirely covered in sand, the Nile gave birth to many cities of great importance. Here are a few. Memphis, Heliopolis, and Fustat were 3 cities that stood where today's metropolitan Cairo is growing wide, with its 22 million inhabitants. Memphis was Egypt's older capital for about 800 years during the 3rd millennium BC, and later it continued to be it on and off during a few more BC centuries. Heliopolis was a capital of the Lower Egypt for a few centuries up until 1000 BC. Fustat was the capital during the first caliphates up until around 1000 AD, when Cairo became the new and final capital of Egypt again, during Ayyubid, Mamluk, and Ottoman rule, a British protectorate, and ultimately the capital of the Republic of Egypt. The submerged city of Herakleion in Greek, near today's Alexandria, was also Egypt's capital for 2 centuries before 2000 BC. Current-day Alexandria was Egypt's capital for almost a millennium, until the 600s AD. Thebes, today's Luxor, was the capital of Egypt, also on and off, roughly between 2000 BC and 600 BC. These are the cities you need to visit in Egypt, all holding an important role in the formation and progress of this exceptional ancient civilization and current nation. There is a hidden explorer and a frustrated archaeologist in all of us, and Luxor could easily become your favorite playground. The largest in the world open-air museum of the antiquity awaits. Temples and tombs will rivet and mesmerize you as we adventure along the majestic River Nile into the scorching Sahara Desert. The Luxor temple was excavated from the rubbles of time over 200 years ago, started by Amenhotep III and later completed by Tutankhamun and Ramses II. It is the oldest temple in Egypt, and was not only a religious site, but a place for festivities, as well as a place for the coronation of pharaohs. Tutankhamun was probably one of them, but even Alexander the Great made such claims. The temple was dedicated to the god Amun-Ra, and his triad consisting of Ra, his consort Mut, and his son Khonsu. Among its most striking features are the gigantic first pylon, the tower wall with the entrance gate, a sight to behold during night tours. The inner courts of Amenhotep III and of Ramses II are surrounded by rows and rows of columns crowned with papyrus capitals. Amenhotep's grand colonnade, by contrast, consists of 2 sets of 7 gigantic, beautifully sculpted columns crowned with open papyrus stone flowers. A 3-kilometer-long avenue of over 1,000 sphinxes that once united the Luxor temple with the Temple of Karnak was restored for decades and recently reopened in 2021. The largest religious structure in the world, Karnak can be traced back about 4,000 years. Dedicated to the triad of the sun god Amun-Ra, Mut, and Khonsu, Karnak is literally a city of temples, among which some are truly gigantic. The Great Temple as its center, the hypostyle of Seti, can easily fit Notre Dame, the Milan Dome, and the Vatican St. Peter's in it. This impressive hall of 134 columns still retains a good part of its original colored engravings, part of the roof, and most of its surrounding wall, and is further joined by several other temples, chapels, halls, obelisks, giant statues, and 2 towering gates called pylons. Built over a period of 2,000 years, some portions are still unfinished, but the splendor and grandeur that got it its name of Ipetisu, or the most select of all places, are evident with each step. The Karnak temple is an open book of ancient history, written by many rulers, allowing us a good look into Egypt's past. The annual Opet festival linked Karnak with the Luxor temple through a legendary procession along the now reopened Avenue of Sphinxes. Maybe one day this festival can be seen live again regularly. Until then, the light show around the temple and its sacred lake are a spectacle you have to see. These 2 temples can be reached while cruising down the Nile. Both are Ptolemaic temples, along with Dendera, Esna, and Philae, built during the last and longest dynasty of Egypt. Ptolemy, a Macedonian Greek, was a general of Alexander the Great, and he declared himself as pharaoh of Egypt after Alexander's death. The last ruler of his long dynasty was Cleopatra VII, the famous one. Now that we established the historic time frame, it is right to mention that Edfu was mostly built before her time. It was dedicated to the falcon god Horus and to the mother goddess Hathor, while Ombo is dedicated to the crocodile god Sobek and to the sky god Haroeris. Edfu was buried in sand for millennia and is almost intact, is still covered, and the splendid inner sanctuary displays a replica of Horus's wooden bark or carriage. The temple's artwork is truly remarkable. Ombo is located almost near Aswan and is a double temple, symmetrically aligned along a central axis, for 2 sets of gods, with two of everything, and was finished during Cleopatra's time. Its most notable particularities are the surprising depiction of surgical instruments, as well as the nearby Crocodile Museum, housing dozens of ancient crocodile mummies of specimens raised at the temple and then mummified as sacrificial offerings for Sobek. The greatest archaeological rescue operation of all times, initiated by UNESCO to save over 22 historic monuments located in the region of the Nile's Aswan Dam. The waters gathering beyond the dam regularly flooded and endangered major antique temples. Among these, the gigantic Temple of Abu Simbel was raised 68 meters higher, while the Temple of Philae was transferred in its entirety 500 meters away to a new location on a partially man-made island, and can be reached today by boat. Philae's obelisk, along with the Rosetta Stone, helped decipher the Egyptian alphabet. The temple is known to be the last containing Egyptian demiotic and hieroglyphic inscriptions, as well as the oldest Latin inscriptions in Egypt. The remaining structures we can admire today, with their gorgeous columns with flower capitals, are still very much awe-inspiring. The nearby city of Aswan will most probably be the end of your Nile cruise, a place to immerse yourself in Egyptian life and customs, where you can see how obelisks were built, and how water and desert have come together in a never-ending, life-sustaining struggle and embrace, which has given rise many thousands of years ago to one of the most fascinating and culturally rich civilizations of our planet. Rescued from the waters of Lake Nasser, the reservoir of the Aswan Dam, the two Abu Simbel temples are the southernmost major temples of Egypt, consisting of the temples of Ramses II and the temple dedicated to his wife Nefertari and the goddess Hathor. Both are carved into the mountainside with interesting interiors. The complex is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Among all Egyptian temples, Abu Simbel has some of the most striking, still-standing, giant statues of pharaohs, totally worth going the extra mile to visit them. The west bank of the Nile holds Egypt's ancient necropolis, the place where rulers, consorts, families, and members of the high society were buried in complete seclusion and secrecy. A UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1979, together with the entire ancient city of Luxor and its East Bank temples. This extensive necropolis also includes separate mortuary temples and pyramids built farther away from the tombs and dedicated to each pharaoh. A total of 65 tombs have been identified and catalogued. But the search continues, and it is estimated that both the Valley of the Kings and the Valley of the Queens still hold a lot of unsolved mysteries and surprises, maybe rivaling the discovery of the royal cache containing the mummies and items of 50 royals, or even the tomb of Tutankhamun with its gold treasures. In addition to the Valley of the Kings and the Valley of the Queens, the Theban necropolis includes the Deir al-Bahri complex, the Medinet Habu of Ramses III and Horemheb, the Mortuary Temple of Seti in Kurna, the Ramesseum or Mortuary Temple of Ramses II, the Basil Gasub with 254 coffins, and the ruined Mortuary Temple of Amenhotep with the two colossi of Memnon. The two giant statues, now disfigured and shaken by earthquakes, represent Amenhotep III, but have been wrongly associated with the Greek mythology warrior king. Ongoing excavation can be frequently seen, and visitors are guided to the accessible areas. Tutankhamun's tomb, KV62, and Nefertari's tomb, QV66, wife of Ramses II, are both currently open to the public. The search for Nefertiti, wife of Akhenaten and one of Egypt's most impressive queens, is still ongoing. Although she portrayed herself as a man, Queen Pharaoh Hatshepsut stands out for addressing the conflict between traditional gender roles and the structure of power, an issue that humanity has never resolved. Daughter of Pharaoh Thutmose I, she was married to her half-brother Thutmose II and became regent of a nephew, a minor, who was officially considered her son, Thutmose III. She questioned as well the patriarchal system of her society. She ruled as a regent for 22 years, bringing on a long period of peace and initiating over 100 constructions of temples. Among these are parts of the Temple of Karnak, the Red Chapel, and her own Mortuary Temple, one of Egypt's most impressive structures and a UNESCO site, recently grouped under El Deir al-Bahri complex. Later pharaohs erased her name and imagery from the temple, including her son, Thutmose III. Her remains are believed to be in tomb KV60A of the Valley of the Kings, but many tombs are still being researched. On a lighter note, Hatshepsut is credited with having been the first among Egypt's queens to use the iconic black charcoal eye makeup, and was known for going on expeditions to acquire little luxuries such as frankincense. True or not, she has overall left a very positive and long-lasting legacy. What other personalities in ancient history, besides King Tut, have become in modern times as popular as a rock star? Maybe Alexander the Great or Cleopatra have equal status as Tutankhamun. We tend to romanticize ancient figures. Although we know a lot of theory about them, we lack practical knowledge about their persona. Tutankhamun, though, deserves all the love. He ascended to the throne as a child at 9. He lived sadly only until the young age of 19, from 1341 to 1323 BC, at a time when the average life expectancy of normal folk was maybe in the mid-20s. Pharaohs, though, did live longer, since many had a pampered life. His father, Akhenaten, was also among the most enigmatic Egyptian pharaohs, strikingly looking and going against the current of the polytheistic traditions of his realm. His remains were discovered in 1922 in the Valley of the Kings, in the famous tomb KV62. It probably is, financially, the most valuable historical discovery ever made. His sarcophagus was made of gold, and over 5,000 other artifacts were found in his antechamber and the burial chamber. The artistry of the pieces is striking. Life-size statues, his throne and other furniture, his many weapons, his canopic jars containing his main organs removed before embalming, all in all, a true treasure. The find has as well an incredible historical value beyond the gold. It sheds light on customs and traditions, on manufacturing processes, medical knowledge, and so much more. Discovering Egypt's sights and riches has been, for many throughout history, a dream come true. Over time, exploring such a vast treasure has been more or less challenging. For first-timers ready to embark on this amazing adventure, here are a few words of wisdom. Respect local dress code. Pick a hotel that covers most destinations, such as the Sonesta chain. Learn the numbers in Arabic, and fly instead of driving whenever possible. Thank you for watching. Have fun, and don't forget to like and subscribe to see many more of the destinations we cover all around the world.